Yo, 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 this is candibknittin. I'm Candy B, and I be knitting. And today I also be talking about my latest finished object, the Pouf cardigan by Beata Jezek. This is going to be a pattern deep dive. I'm going to first start with all the details of the pattern and then go into my version of the pattern. So this is the Pouf cardigan. It was published in 2019 by Beata Jezek, who is the creative energy behind Hedgehog Fibers. And it is a top-down cardigan. It comes in 9 sizes, ranging from a 28-inch finished chest circumference all the way to a 62-inch chest circumference. It's got over 1,000 patterns on Ravelry right now. So, fairly popular, well-known pattern. It is free as long as you sign up for Hedgehog Fibers newsletter. And that comes with emails and giving them your information, but then you can download the pattern directly from their website. It is a DK weight pattern, calls for size 6 needles, and that is because it is 2 strands of fingering weight held double, and the intention being that it creates a fade. I did not do the faded version, I did a marled version, and I'm going to show you mine now. I did a combination of sizes. I did, there's a 38-inch bust and then a 40-inch bust. And I did the cast on for the 38-inch bust. I cast on the amount of stitches that called for. And then when I got to the increases in the body and then the sleeve increases, I did what the pattern said for the 40-inch bust. That is because, one, looking through the Ravelry notes, I saw a lot of people talking about the fit in the shoulders and the sweater falling off their shoulders. So I just compensated for that by going down a size in the cast on, and hopefully that mitigates some of that. And the other thing is because a lot of patterns call for a full bust measurement, and if you are proportionately more chesty or busty, it's suggested to kind of take your upper bust measurement just so the whole garment, a lot of times when they're grading, when designers are grading a pattern, just because the chest is bigger, it doesn't mean proportionately the rest of the body is that much bigger. And so a lot of times they say to go by your upper bust measurement, and that way the sizing will probably be much more in proportion with your body. So I have about a 36, 37 upper bust, 38 to 40 full bust, depending on the time of the month and what I've been eating. So this size actually fits me quite nicely. Also, I did not gauge swatch for this, one, because I'm lazy, and two, because I was just using a bunch of different partial skeins I had left over and just random order, or I didn't necessarily know the order going into the project. I kind of just stuck to I just used the needles that the pattern called for, and so my gauge is actually a bit tighter. So even though I did the 40-inch body measurement instructions, the final size of my body is about 39 inches. And I'm pretty happy with that. One, because a lot of the yarn I used are singles yarns. I wanted that tighter gauge to create a fabric that's a little bit more resistant to wear and tear. Also, like I said, a lot of people in the Ravelry pages said they had fit issues with it being too loose and baggy. And the pattern itself is called the Pouf, and if you've seen the pattern pictures, it is kind of like an oversized slouchy fit, and I didn't necessarily want that. I wanted something a little bit more fitted, a little bit more structure. The intention behind this is, if you have been watching me a while, at the beginning of this year I did a video talking about some of my goals this year, and one of the things I did, I cleaned out my closet and I got rid of an old cardigan that I've had for a while, because while I'm not a big fan of cardigans, I do need at least one cardigan. Like, I need something that I can just put over my shoulders, and for certain, just for fashion, I do prefer the look of a pullover on me, but the functionality in the look of a cardigan, sometimes you just have to have that. And so this is going to be like I've got a lot of cotton dresses, I got a lot of tank tops, I got a lot of kind of like shell tops that I wear to work. And I think this cardigan is just an easy way to change up the look of a really basic plain tank top and jeans, put a cardigan on, and it just takes it to a different place. Also, the AC at work is just kicking sometimes, and so I need that. But going back to what I was saying before, I had a bit tighter gauge than what she calls in the pattern. I think she has a 21 stitch gauge, and I ended up with like a 23 stitch row gauge. This yarn that I used, this yellow is my hand spun, and if I'm going to show y'all this really quick, this is my Vertices Unite shawl. And one of my critiques of this shawl was that I started off with full skeins of yarn, and I ended up with a lot of, like, a good 30-40 grams each of the balls of yarn left over. And so I just dove right into the next project because I'm really trying to cut down on just having random balls of yarn. If I like a yarn, I want to use up every little scrap of yarn. And this marling effect was a really effective way of doing that. So I started off with the same yellow and green that I had. Then I went into the yellow and blue, and then this purple and yellow. So the yellow is my hand spun from Neighborhood Fiber Co. The green, you can probably not see much of the green because the yellow kind of blends in with the green. The yellow, the purple, and the red are all yarn Rehab yarns. I did the entire body, and I wanted to make sure I used up as much yarn in the body as possible. So when I got to the very bottom here, where I got to my ribbing, I just found a ball of, this is just a brown yarn down here that I had just a little nugget of, and I just knitted that until I finished the body. And then I grabbed a random skein of some variegated yarn to do the sleeves. The other dominant color you're seeing here, this top, I'm holding the yellow with all the different colors. And then when I ran out of the yellow, I started holding the green with the rest of my yarn. And then the rest of the sweater, most of the yarn is held double with a green yarn. And that green yarn is Black Smoke. What does she call this? And I don't even think she dyes yarn anymore. I think she just does fibers. This is Black Smoke Fibers, and this is a singles and snakeskin, and this is a merino nylon blend single, which is I find to be pretty unique to have a nylon within the fingering. So I think that's going to help a little bit as far as the pilling and the wear on a cardigan. And it's held double. And this was a yarn that I was thinking about using in my Vertices Unite, because my Vertices Unite is all singles yarn as well. The yarn Rehab is singles yarn. I don't have any more of the yarn Rehab to show you because it all went into the project. And so originally I was trying to fit this green in here somewhere, and I had 2 skeins of this. I used one whole skein for not the entire body, but when I started the green in the body, and then I did a whole sleeve with 1 ball of green, and then I had to go into my second skein of this yarn to do the second sleeve. And then this is that random variegated yarn I had to finish the sleeves. And the other thing you're gonna see here is, because it's kind of like a marled project and it's kind of all random yarns tossed together, I decided to make it a little bit more cohesive. I did the cuffs and the collar all in the green color. So it's the snake skin. And so yeah, I guess I did so that used up a little bit more of this yarn too, using it for the collar and the cuffs. And I found this random, I don't even know what this is. It looks to be some sort of mohair or alpaca. It's some sort of fuzzy yarn. And I held that with the snake skin to kind of give it, like I said, a more uniform look by making the cuffs match the collar. And so it just looks a little bit more polished than just being like, oh, okay, I'm gonna knit this whole sleeve like this and this whole sleeves like this. And that's how I like to do a lot of like my hodgepodgey type patterns. I like to bring them together by doing a uniform details like that. So what did I think of the pattern? Well, first I'll go into, so the modifications I made. I went in between sizes. My gauge was different. Because this is going to be technically a work cardigan, I did not follow the pattern as far as the sleeve goes. In the pattern, she has you knit all the way to the elbow, then do all of your decreases, and then if you are on gauge with the pattern, your decreases should end right below your wrist bone, and then you do 1 inch of ribbing, and that's what creates the poof of the lapoof. What I did differently is I knit halfway down my arm, then I started my increases, so my poof got me to here, and my poof is smaller and less dramatic because of my gauge. And then I started this ribbing and did the ribbing all the way down like this, so that way it's a bit snugger on my arm. I don't have a lot of extra fabric if I'm typing, if I'm knitting. I like this kind of snug around. I also did less stitches, and now we're going to get into what I liked and didn't like about the pattern. For the size medium, I think all the sizes really, once you do the poof, you cut the amount of stitches in half. So here, this is 88 stitches, and she wanted me to go to 44 stitches. And that was way too big for my wrist, and it looked kind of like, in the gauge I was working in, it looked kind of just sloppy and loose. And if I had even gone down to where the pattern wanted me to be, it would be even baggier around my wrist. And I really think if you're gonna go for a puffy look, it has to be snug here. So I went down to 36 inches, and not 36 stitches. But I will show y'all, if I were to have followed the pattern, the intention was your poof. If your poof ends at your wrist, then yeah, so then you would have this action happening here. So that I'm just trying to show y'all what it's supposed to look like. And so mine is much more fitted, much more structured. The other thing I don't care for as far as cardigans, and why I tend to prefer the look of a pullover, is because I don't like a lot of extra fabric. And so this is perfect for me, and there's no buttons in the pattern. It's not intended to be buttoned. It's not in the pattern. They tell you that there's going to be a gap of 2 to 3 inches in the front of your cardigan, and I like that because I just, like I said, I don't want a bunch of extra baggy fabric. But if you are looking at this pattern and you like a big, comfy, cozy, oversized cardigan that you can wrap around, this is not the pattern for you. So what I liked about the pattern, obviously it's free. It's got a nice range of sizes in it. I always like a nice basic pattern because, you know, they sell fade kits to go with the pattern. And so the intention is that you'll buy a nice showy yarn, and then you have like this really simple, straightforward pattern that you can really show off the yarn. And so I appreciate that. I definitely tend to gravitate more towards simpler, like, you know, garter stitch stockinette more so than like cables and things like that. So I liked that. I think I'm definitely going to knit it again because I was just nervous because I saw the pattern pictures and I was like, I really don't want big, huge, puffy arms. But I don't think this puff, and I had to knit it for myself to know proportionally how it would look. And I think it would be nice for me to, like the neck, I would knit this again, which is saying a lot because I don't tend to repeat patterns. But I think it would be nice maybe like, instead of a work cardigan, a date night cardigan where I do the long sleeves with the dramatic poof, because I think I can make it work and it's not as as I thought it was going to be. So I would knit it again. I like the look of it. I like a nice basic open cardigan. I don't want to do buttonholes, so you know, I like that part of the pattern. Some things to look out for, or things that gave me pause in the pattern. Going back to the ribbing, like I said, she said go down to 44 stitches. Something that you'll notice if you are a not even a beginner knitter, like the next step. If you've knit like any sweater before, if this is not your first sweater pattern, a lot of sweater patterns suggest going down a needle size for the ribbing, and that does not appear in the pattern. She says size 6 needles, and you're using size 6 needles the whole time. So something to consider. I did not go down a needle size at the bottom ribbing because I didn't want it to cinch in. I wanted it to like just kind of skim past my hips, and so I did not do that. And I thought it turned out fine. When I got to, obviously I had issues with the cuffs. And the other thing you're going to notice if this is not your first sweater is the pickup ratio for the collar. So you knit the whole body and then you go around and pick up the collar. Like I said, the whole pattern is using the size 6 needles. One, it is much easier as far as picking up and knitting stitches to go down a needle size, even if you end up going back to the size 6 needle just to get into where those stitches are, because at a certain point I'm picking up 4 strands of yarn to properly pick up the stitches. So I needed to go down to like a size 3, size 4 needle to get into the stitches I was trying to get into. Two, depending on your gauge, depending on your aesthetic, obviously ribbing is a bit tighter than stockinette, and so you can end up in a situation if your gauge is a lot tighter than the pattern is, you might end up in a situation where you pick up a lot more stitches and things tend to flare out. Conversely, if you pick up too few stitches and say like your gauge is much bigger than the pattern, you're going to end up with it kind of being like bunched up. And so I did have to pick this up twice. I think I ended up actually knitting it with a size 4 needle, but in the pattern she uses you pick up 2 stitches for every 3 stitches, I think. And when I did my pickup, I picked up 4 stitches for every 5 stitches. So I picked up a lot more stitches, but my gauge was tighter, and my I wanted the look of a tighter ribbing. I don't like loose ribbing. It has to look super tight, and so I needed more stitches to achieve that look. The other thing is the pickup for the collar comes last in the pattern after you've knit the sleeves. And from looking at Ravelry, and I've mentioned this before, a lot of patterns suggested you pick up the collar first, because this is going to add in the pattern actually mentions how wide the cardigan is with the ribbing, and also it might be your personal choice. I think the pattern says 1 inch of ribbing, but if you wanted 2-3 inches, you could add a collar on here. But anything you do here is going to change the shape and the drape of the fabric. And so I actually knit my sleeves. I did the collar first before I knit the sleeves is what I want to say. So I did the whole collar first, gave it a steam block, then I put it on. Then I could actually see much better like how long my sleeves needed to be. So like, let's say you knit your sleeves a certain way, and then you pick up here, and all of a sudden the whole sweater gets a lot tighter and bunchier because you've picked up all these stitches. Then all of a sudden your sleeves are too short, if that makes sense. The other thing that I thought was interesting in the pattern is the body of the sweater. And obviously you can knit a sweater how, like I said, it's a wide open basic pattern. Obviously I changed the length of the sleeves and how I did the decreases. But in the pattern, she says to knit the body to 9.5 inches. And I just thought that was interesting that every single size knit the body the same length. And I would be just curious as to, you know, how that looks proportionately on different bodies. I knit my body to like 12 inches because that's just usually what I do. And I wanted it to kind of be past my hip bones. If I had knit this to 9.5 inches and then did a 1 inch ribbing, it would have been more of a cropped look. And this was supposed to be, you know, something I could wear to work, something that kind of, you know, elevates certain items in my wardrobe. So I really wasn't looking for like something trendy, you know, as far as like, oh, a little crop and then off the shoulder, you know. I was looking for something a little bit more basic, especially given what I've done with the colors here. The other thing that I'm thinking about it that I did, I used a variegated yarn on the arms, and all the rest of this yarn is like very tonal in nature. And I was unsure about that, but the nature of the marling is that it all kind of blends together if you're looking at me, and so you really can't tell. I could only tell as I was knitting in it, and it wasn't as an enjoyable experience as doing two tonal yarns together. But in the end, no one's really going to be like, oh, you mixed variegated with tonal. Let me see what else. There was a couple of other kind of yellow flags in the pattern. I did not do the fade. The directions for the fade seem sound, but I would want to try it as the fade just to see, like, are the instructions, you know, you can read instructions and they're like, oh, that makes sense, but when you're actually doing it, it might feel a little different. But basically the fade is, you know, you start knitting 2 strands in one color, then you drop one strand, pick up another strand, then you knit half of that. You do need a scale to do that, which I own a scale, and my scale is the most important, one of my most important knitting tools. Like outside of needles and yarn, I have to have a scale. My sleeves are the same. Yeah, gauge is super important. If you're following the pattern, you want to make sure your sleeves are the same. You know, as far as like doing the increases, you might have to play around with that. Yeah, but all in all, I liked it. Like I said, I would knit it again. I could see myself having a couple of, like, you know, a lot of times you want to knit something for like a special occasion or something like that, or to match a certain dress you have. And so I could see myself knitting a couple of these, maybe like one in black, or I have a bunch of this Lion brand sock yarn that it would take me a couple of years to knit all of these socks. So I was thinking of like using this yarn in like a sweater, and I think some of the colors would fade nicely with each other. Or, you know, more of more subdued colors maybe. So that's that. That's my Pouf. Something else to note, it kind of was all serendipitous because I was actually watching another knitting pod. Her name's Lena, and I had never seen this pattern before, didn't realize Hedgehog Fibers made patterns. And I was like, oh, I've been wanting a cardigan. And this whole time going into this year, I wanted a cardigan. Then boom, Pine Barren Knits, they're having a knit along for the Pouf, and they're calling it a particular age cal, whereby they want sweaters for Rhinebeck that are in particular cardigans, because you can take them off if you get too hot, because if you're of a particular age, you tend to get warm unexpectedly. And so the fact, yeah, and that's kind of what I was looking for too, was something that was a transitional piece that I could take on and off. And so it kind of was like, oh, I guess I'm doing a knit along now. And so I'll probably post this on Instagram with a little hashtag and tag them, because, you know, it's like the group think all kind of got together and was like, yeah, we should do Poufs. And yeah, it's a great little free pattern. It's definitely beginner friendly. I was very intimidated by doing, like, the idea of a cardigan. It's like a mixture of knitting flat, knitting in the round. I don't mind knitting flat at all, especially for a cardigan. And so it's like, you know, it's a good project for a beginner. You have to know how to make left, make right. They give you instructions in the pattern. You kind of have to have your own ideas, because it is a very loose pattern. The whole document is 5 to 6 pages long, and maybe 2 of those pages are actual real instructions. You know, there's definitions of terms, and there's pictures, and there's I think there's a schematic in the pattern. But this could definitely be somebody's first cardigan or sweater, or wearable, if you will. You do need to watch out if you're using like all superwash yarn, because that is going to grow significantly on you, especially if you're doing long, billowy sleeves. If I do make this again, and I want to make it 2 pattern, I probably would go up to like a size 7 needle and get that very like dreamy, loose fabric. All in all, my sweater weighs exactly 500 grams, and that is probably due to the tighter gauge. I just used more yarn. Hedgehog Fibers does sell 5 skein sets for this pattern, and so if you were knitting to the gauge in the pattern or on size 7 needles, you might not end up using all 5 skeins of the yarn, but this was exactly 500 yards, not 500 yards, 500 grams, which is just about 5 skeins of fingering weight yarn. So that's that. Have you knit a Pouf cardigan? Let me know in the comments. Did I miss anything? I'm having the feeling that I forgot several things because it was for as simple as the pattern was, I did have a lot of notes. I took really good notes about like all the decisions I was making, because like I said, when it's a simple pattern, you have a lot more personal decisions to, I mean, you can modify any pattern, but a pattern that leaves, you know, knit to whatever length you want. Hey, you know, maybe you got to 9.5 inches on your sleeve, maybe not, I don't know. But all that being said, let me know. Next time we meet, I'll show you what I'm casting on next. I got a couple of projects I'm pretty excited about. A project that I actually really did swatch for. So that should be fun. Until next time, peace. Oh, wait a minute, stop. If you want to talk to me, like I said, comment below, like, share this video, do the YouTube stuff. Or if you don't want to chat below, you can always email me, candibknittin@gmail.com, or follow me on Instagram @Rulude. Now, peace.